Welcome to All About Accelerating Products, and this is a podcast where we dive into the minds of industry leaders to uncover proven strategies for speeding up product development, improving time to market, and doing it all without sacrificing quality, compliance, or ballooning costs. That's a lot. So, if you're ready to unlock some secrets to stay ahead in today's fast paced world, you're in the right place. And I'm Chris McHale. I'm CEO and co-founder of SBK and Associates. And with me is Erin Wright, who is currently Vice President of Product Management at MasterControl. And in case you're not familiar, MasterControl offers a leading quality management system, QMS system, which helps highly regulated companies ensure quality and compliance in their life sciences operations. Was that a good description of MasterControl, Erin?
That's fantastic. One of the great things about our company is that we've been actually growing our influence and product suite, and I look forward to talking about this with you more
Super. Yeah.
about having that interconnected data between both the quality function and the manufacturing function. So we have a very robust next gen MES on the market right now, and I really look forward to talking about what that interplay of that data does for quality optimization.
Okay, super, super. So Erin, you've had about, I think, over 15, 16 years of experience in the life sciences software industry. And this is going to be really fun for me because I love it when people come on that have both done software product development, which you have helped with, of course, with MasterControl inside MasterControl, but then you also, your product is serving product development professionals, your MasterControl clients. And so you've kind of got these two sides of a view to the world of product development, which is incredibly valuable. So I was excited that Erin agreed. Thank you so much for taking your time to come here today to talk about all of this and share your experiences with us.
Yeah,
So,
I'm excited to be here.
all right, super. So let's just dive in. So your career centers around life sciences and the life sciences industry, which is just wonderful. What drew you to this industry in particular, and then also what attracted you to the product management part of it? But if you could just give us a little bit of a story of your career, that's helpful, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually started working in hospital space. So
Oh
I
wow.
worked in hospitals, both on kind of a clinical side. I worked in psychiatric units, and so that we
Mm.
had a couple of clinical trials going on at the time in the hospital where I worked, and you could kind of see the inner workings of how it was going, and just got really interested in how different life sciences companies are bringing products to market. We ended up working really closely with a small startup, an IRT called Clarix Products Group, for
Huh.
interactive response technology for clinical trial software,
Yeah.
which eventually was purchased by Oracle and their business health
Oh
science
wow.
business unit. Um, and just really started understanding some of the pains of like what it really takes to bring a product to market, all of those iterations as you're going through the trial, the tweaks to the product itself, and really got a lot of experience working with quality professionals in the clinical space for those customers. And so we're being in our quality teams and uncovering and realizing it's really hard to
Yeah.
make good products reliably,
Yep.
validly, compliantly
Yep.
in the current space. And so back in 2008, there wasn't a lot of clear. The cloud was still a very new concept. There wasn't a lot of software on the market specifically designed for Part 11 compliance.
Hmm.
Despite Part 11 coming out in 1997, a lot of companies still weren't sure how to apply that regulation to their spaces. Uh, so everyone was actually using 820 as their benchmark of here's how you validate software, here's how you use software. And so we worked really closely with a lot of medical device companies to help them understand how they were interpreting the regulations on that space, and working really closely with quality teams to see
Hmm.
those pains. And from there, it's how do we solve these problems? It's not enough just to identify the problem, it's how do you solve them moving forward and then prevent them from happening in the first place. And so that's such a natural fit between medical device manufacturing and creating your products, and then making products for the software to create those products,
Right.
because
Right.
we're all fundamentally trying to solve problems. And so that speaks so much to me about how do we create things in the world that have real meaning. It's
Right.
it's it's so inspiring to hear the stories of our customers, and the work that they're doing, and how we can help them make their life-changing products available to more people sooner, which is the mission statement at MasterControl. And it's so inspiring to live that as part of our organization. Uh,
That is
so we
wonderful.
I started with MasterControl for about
Yeah.
10 years ago, worked really closely in our product team, and now I'm over our full quality suite of products, and we were branching out and creating our manufacturing suite of software products,
Oh, nice.
really just trying to help make customers change lives faster as they can.
Yeah. And do you guys, because I'm a big fan of your software, we at SBK, we have a bunch of our clients that use it. Do you have a particular size of company that it seems to work best for, like a mid-market type of size, too small, or do you span the entire
We span the
size?
entire the lifespan of a company, right? So
Hmm.
we have offerings for the smaller tier that gives you
Hmm.
just enough to get started. When you
Oh,
are
good.
5 people, talking about and engineering a new product together, your needs are a little different for the
Yeah,
scalability and robustness and interconnections and integrations than, say, an enterprise customer.
right.
But our product scales from the very, very small to the very, very large. We're very proud of that within our organization. And so we're looking across the board at everything.
Okay.
We started in small to mid tier, but we've really seen the ability to grow for the comprehensiveness of what we're offering up to the enterprise.
Okay, wonderful. That's great. Okay, so you personally have deep experience with quality management, and that, of course, is related to a regulated product industry, regulated product management situation. And just for any, if we have any listeners that are not part of life sciences or what I'd call kind of a safety oriented industry like aerospace or automotive,
Mhm.
a lot of what you're going to talk about with quality management and compliance management really is very, very strong in those industries and of course in medical device or life sciences. But I would argue that it's relevant to people in any industry, maybe not as deeply, they don't have to go as deep or as broad, but everybody's got some level of compliance now that they have to deal with. And so I think there's a lot to learn from people in the medical device or life sciences industry as well as the others. So I just encourage everybody to hang in there and listen to some of these great little nuggets of truth that you're going to come out with. But anyway, back to the question. So you have deep experience in this area. And then you also were in the field for a while, right? With MasterControl, which means that you were at client sites or you were doing things at client sites. So I wonder if you have one or two stories that you could share with us that highlight like a significant or unusual obstacle that was overcome at a client or that you overcame related to quality management, product management of their products. People love to hear about those things and can learn from them.
Yeah, absolutely. I used to be a road warrior, so I was out on the road 3 weeks out of the month. I'm pretty sure my kids knew who I was at the time.
Yeah, I
And
know.
so we would go out into these sites to help implement these quality systems.
Hmm.
And the biggest example that was so inspiring for me, we had a company during COVID, and they make a traveling radiography machines. So they're basically like mobile X-ray machines. And so during COVID, and they make them from various sizes so they can fit really closely next to children's bedsides and all the way up to adult sizes. And during COVID, and as the very early days of it during 2020, there was so much need for all of that imaging. And so I'm sure you remember the honeycomb lung images of those
Yeah.
patients who were getting COVID very early, or children who were getting Miss C, that they just weren't sure what was going on. And so they were ramping up significant manufacturing, and they had a quality system that wasn't ready to scale. It was very manual, it was very intensive. Their quality team had to make every decision about, hey, there was this problem with the testing for this X-ray paper that we were using. They would have to go and manually find it, figure out the form, figure out who was the right person to go talk to really understand how this happened. They didn't have that interconnected data, and it was really hard for them to scale their operations when you're making 10, 50 of these radiography machines in a year. That's a much easier process. The volume
Right.
is much lower. You are getting you have more time to investigate those items. Your time, it's not literally life and death for some people to be able to get an x-ray or these hospitals to be able to use these machines. And it just wasn't working for them. And so in the midst of COVID, when most people were off site, we're on Zoom, people are
Mm-hmm.
wearing masks, we're trying our best to be, do as much as we can on Zoom, do as much as we can from home. People are, wearing masks when they're in their office, walking through their quality processes, and really trying to figure out how much of the decision making could be automated through software. And so, do we need to have our quality manager make the decision of who's signing off on everything, or can we automate this through data within the form? So if it's this portion of the product, we know it's going to go to these quality managers. If it's this portion of the, if it's coming from this supplier, we know that we need to start tracking X, Y, and Z pieces of data. And so instead of having them to manually create that every time there was an issue, particularly at scale, particularly when they moved to 24/7 manufacturing across multiple locations, it was really, really difficult for them. So it's been fantastic kind of to see that very quick turnaround, especially in the midst of the COVID and the global pandemic, as they was talking about it. Um,
So in essence, they took this very manual process. I assume they were using MasterControl is what you're referring to here, and then you using pieces of data, you actually were able to automate pieces of that quality process, and still ensuring the quality, making sure that it was there, making sure little to no mistakes were made, but not requiring a person to intervene at multiple points, which is
and
absolutely amazing. That's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so much of quality is repeatability and validity. And
Hmm.
so the more that you can automate that and set up rules, then you are creating those repeatable processes. And
Yeah.
obviously verify, validate that these processes capture the information, have those checkpoints that you need as part of your custom quality process. But the less that you have to, the more that you can automate, the more repeatable and reliable your processes are going to be,
Right.
because you're removing that human interaction portion of it, where if I'm having a bad day, or there's four different kappas going on and I accidentally mix up which checklist I should be using, it's
Yes.
really hard to correct that. You can remove, if I actually mess up which checklist I'm using, it's much. This removes that problem for you. This
Right.
removes that an introduction of human error into the system, and it allows you to
Right.
focus on your actual job, like saving children's lives through diagnostic tooling.
Right. And it's actually, besides the making mistakes with checklists, you can get into situations where people will skip them because
Yeah,
they're tired or they're, especially during COVID, I mean, where people were
yeah,
absolutely exhausted, right? That would be a big one. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny to me too because I love quality. I've always loved quality. I don't find it to be boring at all, like some people do. But the thing for me is that when we talk with and we're working with people in other industries they're doing product development in other industries, sometimes if quality is not a safety issue in that industry for that product, and they think, well, worst happens is I send something out, maybe it's got some issues, but it's okay. Yeah, we'll just get it out there. But what I love about what you're saying is that quality doesn't have to be this really expensive, overarching, incredibly manual thing that goes on. It can be automated, and if you can find ways as a product manager to automate the quality into your process, not only will you get higher quality and less problem, but it's less expensive to manage that quality, and it's incredibly important. I mean, in any industry, I think. So I love about what you're saying there. That really applies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and fundamentally, you know, we all want to save the world. We are all creating these life-changing products. But
Right.
fundamentally, these are businesses that you have an efficiency that you need to be able to achieve to meet financial metrics, to have, to meet your sales orders and outputs that you're expecting. And so by automating so much of that, you are removing that burden from your quality team of being a cost center. So
Right.
we hear that a lot from our customers. How do I talk to my C-suite about getting funding for the software that's going to make this so much easier for me when I'm a cost center? How do I,
Yeah.
quality is seen not by everybody, by some select few. Quality can be seen as a burden that, oh,
Yeah.
they're just here to stop us from making improvements, from innovating. They're the gatekeepers and the stage gates, and there is some of that mentality in the organization. But when you focus on quality as an efficiency driver, that you get to that golden batch, that
Mm-hmm.
golden lot manufacturing kind of conversation of I am making my processes future proof, that everything is going to work, that everything is going to go smoothly, you're increasing your ability to deliver your products on that cadence. And so really focusing on how are you capturing that cost of quality, or worse, the cost of poor quality,
Right.
through your existing metrics.
Right. Which I think we're going to talk about in a little bit when I'm really interested in hearing more about that and also talking about what those metrics, how you can capture or collect those metrics and so on, which would be helpful. But before we go there, let's see. Do you have as a product manager and as a person who's worked with all of these customers that do product development, do you have any favorite initiative or improvement that you've seen in quality management systems within product development in the past, let's say 5 years? And then the follow-up question to that is what trends that you might see now, and what would you recommend to people who are listening to try to stay ahead? So two-part question there.
Uh, yeah, so much of the trends is that there has been a sweep of digitization across life
Mm.
sciences. So, QMS, MasterControl, has been in this space since about 2002, for life sciences, but we've seen a lot of different offerings, particularly as you get into the cloud native, availability for those QMS softwares. But there's so much of the life sciences space that isn't digitized yet. So
Hmm.
it makes a lot of sense to digitize your training documents, your SOPs, your work instructions, your policies, automate training processes, your quality management. But what we're finding is that as more people add digitization of those processes, it has to be more interconnected. And
Hmm.
so in the last 5 years, we've been hearing a lot from our customers and across industry that your quality management system isn't a silo. It's
Hmm.
everything about how you are making your product. It touches every piece of your organization. But if somebody is on FMLA because they had a baby, then going to impact when you should be launching their training tasks, which is going to impact your resourcing for your manufacturing line, which is going to impact who's qualified to be a verifier along your manufacturing line for the product. All of those pieces of data that you have in your HR software, that you have in your QMS, that you have in your MES, is all needs to be more interconnected, and
Hmm.
your quality system sits at the heart of that because it's driving and creating how you are making your products in a controlled and repeatable fashion. And so we've really seen that huge trend toward that interconnected data
Hmm.
and bringing everything up into the software space. Uh,
When you say that,
another,
it actually reminds me a little bit of in product development, they talk so much about having a security awareness for everybody from the developers all the way through. So you're saying the same thing about quality, that it's no longer just the quality or the quality assurance department that's responsible for it. That idea of quality and using quality has to pervade through the entire organization. It sounds like, especially the product development side.
no, absolutely. I mean, quality is everyone's responsibility. And
Yeah.
so you can't, when we talk about QMS and that software, it tends to sit under a quality team in that
Hmm.
organization. But because it's so ingrained into everything that you're doing, it's part of every other software piece. Having everything digitized and having that interconnected data story allows you to make better data initiatives and decisions. Something that we have been seeing a lot in industry is our customers wanting to take data from their QMS, data from their manufacturing system, data from their employee training time for like
Hmm.
corporate initiatives,
Yes.
and commingling it all together and trying to see what is this information telling me? What are the insights and the stories that I can understand from this commingled data across all of my organizations? And keeping that all secure as well. I mean,
Right.
so much of that security landscape getting into the cloud can get really complicated and very concerning. I mean, CrowdStrike put out an item, and Delta was down for a week and a half,
Right.
and
So
so
you must see a lot of data engineering initiatives then, because normally this data that you're referring to can sit in silos because these silos, the data is created by different applications, right? So every time you have a separate application, like you have MasterControl and maybe your HR system, to use your example, you've got different data silos. And so in order to get correlations and information out of that, you need to create a data lake, or at least there has to be some sort of data engineering. So are you seeing a lot of that going on right now, or are you encouraging people to do that? You're not seeing that much yet. Like, what's this? What are you seeing?
I think there's a lot of appetite for it, especially
Hmm.
as we get to the buzzword that's on the tip of everyone's tongue. As we start talking about AI,
Right, which we'll get to.
there's so many people
Yeah.
that are really excited about all the opportunities that are there for these AI and ML products and functionality, but haven't taken the baby step of
Hmm.
what does my data look like? Is
Hmm.
it structured? Is it unstructured? Do I have a master data management plan of I only have one list of suppliers across all 17 of my products? I only or if I only have one list of SOPs that I need to think about and manage and control in one of my products. And
Hmm.
so as we see the digitization movement that's happening right now, we're seeing a lot of companies begin to take those first steps into actually having a data strategy. And so how are we storing our data? How are we attributing meaning to our data? I mean, because again, all these different data silos, like you were pointing out, some of it's structured data that I can say, oh yes, I know that's my product field. Some of it's
Hmm.
completely unstructured data of here is a text box of the great American novel that someone wrote.
Right.
And being able to attribute meaning and insights from that can be really difficult. And so that's
Yep.
like the first iterative process that we're beginning to see from our customer base is really embracing that data strategy and that data story to then be able to get to the next step of making those massive AI leaps. So one of my friends is actually speaking at the OpenAI conference about how he has created these LLMs to help with drug discovery and
Mm.
molecule discovery for his organization. And so you can do that. We see these great verticals, but wouldn't it be great to then take that and saying, and here's the map to the overall protocols that this might work for a clinical trial. And now we can send that, and automate that documentation into our IRB consent forms for automatic
Hmm.
approval and that content management, because we can contribute in, meaning to those pieces of content in the data and get those insights from it.
That's wonderful. Yeah. I actually had John Willis on a few weeks ago, who's sort of a DevOps guru type of person, and he was talking about the same thing. We were talking about AI in product development, but he says it's really, you start with the data, and
Mm-hmm.
it's really about the data first and foremost, and what are you going to do with data, and how are you going to manage that, and how are you going to organize it, and so on and so forth, before you get to the other things. So it's the same story, that
It's
they were
it's the
telling.
found it's the foundation of
Hmm.
the building that you're creating, that
Right.
all of these great new shiny initiatives are amazing and there's so much potential, but if you don't have a strong foundation, then everything you built on it is just going to be shaky like it's built on sand.
Right. Right.
And so that has been a big shift that we've seen. And we've also been looking at almost suites of products. And so instead of having I use this vendor for process management and I use
Hmm.
this vendor for training, because those are both really good core competencies that they have. We've seen people moving to more holistic suites. If I'm going to use
Okay.
this vendor that gives me everything, because it allows you to have that interconnected data to tell that story of a quality event, so that when I'm in the middle of an audit for one of my suppliers who provides materials for my for the manufacturing of my device, that I can then launch an observation finding for remediation from that kappa. I can then come in and review what are the specifications, what are the contract approvals that we had in place for what we said we were supposed to be getting from the supplier, and launch a document change request based upon that audit.
Mm.
I can maybe launch an internal kappa for who approved it if it's not the appropriate specification,
Right.
and having that full thread of all the information, and then knowing, hey, the supplier materials is actively being used on these active manufacturing lines right now. We might need to put a halt on that and set, and quarantine those individual lots
Hmm.
that we've been working on. And so having that interconnected data, not just for AI and ML initiatives moving forward, but having everything talking to each other so you get that full
Hmm.
context of the quality problem.
Hmm. So not just for the data, but also for the process itself,
Right.
because it's all about, if you have segregated processes, which are managed by these various applications, it can sometimes have hiccups in between the processes where you can't actually integrate the processes, is what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you lose the context, right? So if I have my training information over here, maybe I've forgotten that Erin hasn't, we had a customer that had their training information in one product, they had their quality processes in another product, and they were using us for document management because that is
Hmm.
something that we're pretty good at
Yeah.
in our organization. And they were really struggling with understanding who's trained on this document and if they're, or this process, and now are they allowed to execute that process? And so
Right.
getting that cross-platform understanding was really difficult for them because it was so siloed. And so having
Yeah.
that either native integrations between the different products, creating your own custom integrations, which can
Mm.
be a little fraught, um,
Yes.
or going with that kind of suite of products that we've been seeing as a
Right.
trend over the years.
Right. That's wonderful. You talked a little bit before, and this is another trend I think that you were mentioning, trends in ROI, and also you mentioned before cost of quality or cost of poor quality. Can you speak to some of those and what you're seeing and how you're seeing maybe your customers implementing that? What kinds of trends you're seeing across the board with those areas?
Yeah, especially in today's market, interest rates just went down, so everyone's really excited about future valuations for their organizations.
Right.
We're seeing the CFOs and the financial drivers of the organization really trying to understand how do we create measure monetary value of our non, we won't call them cost centers, we'll call them
Hmm.
nonprofit centers.
Yep.
Um,
I like that.
and so you have these quality teams that are necessary. It's table stakes for working in a medical device and regulatory space.
Hmm.
But how much of this tooling can get very expensive, especially if you're trying to build it homegrown or bespoke, or go through like a premise-based MES manufacturing system. And so how do you show the value of the
Hmm.
investment of this digitization of these AI initiatives to your CFOs in language that they understand? Because again,
Hmm.
at the end of the day, this is a business. So what we have been seeing with a lot of our customers is creating those ROI calculators. How do you measure effectiveness of your processes in terms of capital?
Hmm.
And so
Right.
talking like, it's headcount, it's how much time you spend
Yep.
looking for a training. It's if you're in the middle of an audit or if you are served with a 483 during an inspection, what is that doing to your manufacturing line? How many hours, minutes is your
Yep.
manufacturing line down
Yep.
while you're investigating? Are we using the approved supplier information or materials for this manufacturing line? Is my line worker, my manufacturing operator, my builder trained on how to do the process that he or she is doing at the time?
Right.
Um, and so measuring all of those hiccups of your current process of here's where you're losing efficiencies. Here's where
Hmm.
you could streamline this through automating the information. This line worker isn't allowed to be assigned to this step because they haven't finished this training. They can't perform this process to save you from a 483 down the road.
Hmm.
And so really defining all of those hiccups. Where are you spending your time? Sitting down with your organization and mapping out what a day in your life looks like and
Mm.
assigning monetary value to that. And if we didn't have these problems, if I wasn't going to trying to futz with an integration between three different products to understand the context of if Erin is the right person with the right experience to be sitting on this step in the manufacturing line,
Hmm.
what could we be doing with our organization at that point? And so really focusing on these efficiencies and then also
Yep.
looking at cost of poor quality. What does it cost you to have to stop everything because there was a deviation from an unplanned deviation from an approved process?
Hmm.
What does it cost you that you now have to go back and redo the sampling? How much is your
Hmm.
scrap percentages now
Hmm.
for your product? Is this whole unit now completely scrap as you're going through and doing your testing?
So a lot of, I mean, this is like the holy grail, right? Of proving that a particular application or set of processes or what have you is worth its money, the cost that is going into it. Is this type of ROI analysis that you're talking about? It seems incredibly complex because there's so many pieces and parts here. Do you tend to chunk it up? Do people tend to chunk it up into pieces? Are they looking at the cost of time or lost time more than anything else? How do they approach it? And something like what you've talked about, I mean, how much time and effort does that take for a team to put something like that together for a CFO? I'm just curious because a lot of people would like to try to do what you're talking about, but we've heard they hesitate because it seems incredibly time consuming.
To do it independently, it really can be time consuming.
Yeah.
That is not for the faint of heart. One of the areas that we have seen is typically when customers are coming to us to help them with their quality processes, they have pain points. They
Mm.
know it takes us a really long time. We might not have the exact metrics, but we know that we want to start measuring from the beginning of the implementation. How long does it take us to get to 85% training
Yeah.
compliance? Because if you can get to 100% training compliance, you need to take that show on the road.
Yeah, right.
Um, but so it's how much we want to get to 85% training compliance within 5 days of a document of training tasks being sent out. And we can take those metrics and we can just start. And so measuring, great, here's what you are right now. We have all, as we are loading your historical data into the system, we can understand what some of those trends look like as from when it was launched to when it was signed off on. And then we can measure success moving forward. So we have within our sales group and our services teams, we have this ROI calculator that helps our customers understand, here is the value you're getting
Yeah.
by implementing these products. So some of it is time. Some of it is how much time, for my headcount, for my quality teams, as we're scaling, as we're growing, because you digitize as you grow. First you start, simple on paper, before you're really getting, as you're getting your seed funding. As you're growing and scaling, maybe you don't need to grow and scale your quality team because you have these automated processes in place.
Right.
And so what does that save you in the long run? What is the net present value of that headcount,
Right. Right. That's right.
that you saved, not from hiring 5 years from now.
That's right. I mean, it's really helpful. I think a lot of people may think of something like that ROI calculator as a sales tool, but I have found it to be just incredibly valuable. I mean, it's a value that is being brought to the client because what you're trying to do is figure out what is it, is it really worth buying whatever it is that you're about to buy? I mean, is this investment that you're going to make worth it or not? Are you going to save enough time, quality, whatever all of these different costs are? And you're helping them to see that, which it's really valuable, I think. Yeah.
And not even just a sales measure, which certainly helpful,
Sure. Yeah.
but looking at effectiveness. How
Yes.
effective are we with what we're changing? So we've made these process changes, and in quality, we care a lot about, hey, we put in this preventative measure to improve our quality. Here's the hypotheses. Here's the bets that we're making.
Hmm.
That it's going to impact X, Y, and Z metrics. And then it gives us data and information, say, how are we benchmarking against that? How are we
Hmm.
doing for our effectiveness? How efficient are we being as we're moving through this process?
Yeah.
And so it's just as we see in our quality processes, as you're implementing new software, like what is your goal? And then measuring against that and making sure that it's actually meeting the intended purpose that it was supposed to when you implement software in the first place.
Yeah, in a prior life, I was really involved in economic development and small economic development projects that were in West Africa. And the first thing we would do when we did a project was we'd go in and do a baseline survey, and we would spend weeks talking to people, measuring things, trying to develop a qualitative and very quantitative, if we could, picture of what is it like now, because then we were going to spend all this money to put in these projects, and then we would measure it again at the end. And it's a funny thing that I have seen in product development scenarios where people will say, "Oh, we need this thing. This thing is going to make everything faster. It's going to make everything better. It'll get to market faster." And no one even stops to measure how it is right now. And then
Mm-hmm.
you put the thing in, and then you're sitting there saying, "Well, is it worth it?" And I don't know because I didn't really know what it was before. And it's astounding how we all forget to do that over and over again. And so it's really valuable. It does take some time.
It
And yeah, and that's why people don't want to do it, but it's very important. Yeah.
But I mean, that comes back to that product management, that product development mindset is what is the problem you are trying to solve? It's defining that problem space and then understanding, hey, with this plan, what do I actually want to come out of it? Forget my
Hmm.
solution. How I choose to solve this problem could be I could solve this problem in a lot of different ways. What is my end goal here? Is my
Hmm.
end goal a measurable increase in perfect batches, perfect
Yeah.
lots of items coming off the line? is my goal a 15% reduction in defects found from this specific process that we were having issues with? And so it's a matter of defining that outcome measurement. It's like fundamentally what value am I trying to provide to my company, to my process, to my product?
Hmm.
I don't know, going back, and how can you define that value if you don't know where you are right now?
Right, right. So just to let's I know we don't have too much time left, but I want to finish up by touching on the ever-present topic of AI because we can't possibly leave without touching on that. But I would like to we've spoken a little bit about it earlier, but uh, I'd like to hear what you think, how you think AI is going to play in the world of products and product development, particularly in life sciences with quality and compliance. Um, and how might companies right now, what should they start doing and thinking of doing to not get left behind, if you will? And if you have any stories from things that you see clients doing right now, like steps that they're taking right now, that would be really helpful, I think, to our listeners.
People want to use AI. There's a lot of potential there, but until you have clearly defined use cases, it's really hard to create that AI or ML recommender tool of what are you trying to achieve? What is the efficiency that you're looking for? What we've been seeing from regulatory bodies and the FDA is that they understand and they see the value of AI. They
Okay.
have the software as a medical device classification came out about 5 years ago.
Mhm.
They're beginning to put in guidances and understanding about it. There's an EU regulation that came out on the critical use and how you protect against AI, and make sure that you're providing that right value. But right now, I think a lot of people are really hesitant about it. We've been talking to our customer base because, of course, you can't not talk about AI with your customer
Of
base.
course, yeah.
And like we were hearing from manufacturers and our quality professionals of, I don't know that I can trust it. I don't know how to
Mm,
validate it for computer software validation. There's really light guidelines around what that looks like. How do I validate an automated black box of experience
yeah,
if I put in prompts and things come back and I can give it a scoring and I can train it on data, but how do you create a repeatable process of here's my test instruction, here is my
yeah.
expected outcome, and here is my actual results within a generative AI LLM? Like,
Hmm.
how do you do that well in a repeatable fashion when it's going to be unique each time as it learns and knows more? Um, so when we've been talking to our customers, what they're really looking for is a second pair of hands. They
Hmm.
don't need a second brain. When people talk about AI right now, they're at the stage where they're like, hey, help me create a list of questions for for this document. If I'm going to do an exam, if I want to have actual effectiveness checks of how well did they understand what they were trained on, I'm a quality manager. I'm not a subject matter expertise. I cannot tell you what step 7 actually says. Um, but I can have something come out with, hey, here's questions, and I can submit them to the subject matter expertise and think, hey, does this accurately cover what you want to know or what you think is important for people to know about this training? How do I take those really practical and low risk items that you
Mm.
have complete control of, hey, here's questions that we think that might be valid for your training exam when it comes to a document. Fantastic. I can review those. I can change those. I can choose not to use them. I can run them by other people as opposed to fully automating and having AI do everything for me. And eventually we're going to get there. Eventually there's
Hmm.
going to be such confidence, if you think about the difference between just software for quality from 2002 until 2024, it is night and day of what is on the market and what is available and what neat things we can do. And so as AI and generative AI becomes more robust and more refined, there will be incredible things that we can do with these products. What we're hearing from our customers right now is they want it to be practical, every day, human in the loop. I make a final decision. I can choose to use it or not use it, but it'll help me understand where I need to focus my area, where I can, and help me automate some of those mundane tasks that I don't want to be generating exam questions necessarily.
Yeah, that I love that answer because the idea of a second pair of hands, which is also slightly a second brain, but all it's doing is, if I'm hearing you correctly, is it's really providing a first draft almost of something for people that they then go and can take a look at and refine or what have you. And especially in a world where quality and compliance are so huge and so big, I think it is one of the later places where people will start to trust, a more final product, if you will, from AI. And so but that's an amazingly helpful way to start right now, I think.
And the second brain is going to be amazing when we're there. What we're hearing
Yeah.
from our customers, as we've been developing our AI capabilities, we have a customer who just says, I need to feel really confident how I defend this in a regulatory inspection. I need to feel
Yeah.
confident about this use case before I use it for a regulatory submission. And so, one of the areas that we're seeing a lot of buzz around is creating that annual quality report on your products.
Hmm.
And it's an aggregate, great, but what if it misses something? And then you have
Hmm.
to go through these hundreds of pages of the information, and that's being used once on the annual cadence of creating these product reports. So having that small, lightweight, practical,
Hmm.
human in the loop experience of I need to generate exam questions. I need you to summarize the changes between these two versions of documents so that I can understand exactly what's been updated
Hmm.
because someone didn't do track changes appropriately.
Right,
Right?
right,
So
right.
really kind of having that key insight and understanding of, hey, and here's the important areas to focus on allows you to get productivity and
Hmm.
value
Hmm.
without negatively impacting quality. We are a very conservative organization. We
Yes.
are a very conservative industry
Yep.
because we are creating products that, one of our customer makes cochlear implants for to allow people to hear better. And so they are literally inserting these products into people's brains.
Right.
You don't want to go into that without appropriate levels of risk and measurement and
Right,
control. And
right.
so we have, many of our customers are making these incredible products that are so high risk if there is
Hmm.
poor quality. And so making sure that everything that you're doing around that space is being very thoughtful and intentional and controlled as we're onboarding new software, as we're onboarding new technologies and mindsets like AI.
Yeah. A good note to end on, and a good note to sort of not warn people about, but just to be careful about, because while it is so intriguing what's happening right now, and it's so compelling, isn't it? I mean, you think, oh, I could use this, and I could let it do this for me, and so on. But especially in this industry, as you just said, we have to be mindful and careful, about the steps that we're taking. But it is going to
We
be very helpful, I think. Go ahead.
we hold people's lives in our hands. This is
Yeah.
amazing product. There's going to be so many great things that come out of AI. There's so many great use cases for how you can apply it. And what we're seeing with our customers is they want practical ways that they can get really
Mhm.
comfortable with it first, which I
Yeah.
think is a trend in general in quality.
Yes.
So
Yes. Well, this is wonderful, Erin. I think we're out of time, but I really appreciate you taking the time to come on here today and share your experience and your ideas. It's been super helpful. So thank you very much.
thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun. I really appreciate it.
Okay, good. All right, we'll see everybody next time.